The earth is filled with injustice and injustice. President Trump announced days ago that he was angry with the Ukrainian president. Of course, his anger was repeated very many times until the matter reached the point of expulsion from the White House, as we once had in previous events, and here we presented an episode on this topic on the channel. He is extremely angry with him for a very peculiar reason. He's furious because Zelensky stated in a press conference that Crimea is occupied Ukrainian territory. It does not recognize Russia's ownership, eternal possession of this earth, and it means that one day this earth will be liberated and returned to what? To Ukraine. And that the first Ukrainian constitution says that this is occupied territory and that he does not have the right to change the constitution as an individual, as the president of a republic, meaning that he does not have the right at the same time to cede Crimea, and this is the right of the Ukrainian people and subsequent generations of the Ukrainian people. Trump criticized these statements, deeming them detrimental to the cause and asserting that Ukraine should recognize Crimea, which overlooks the Black Sea, as Russian. Of course, Russia took Crimea from the year 2014, so they say that the issue is over, it is obsolete, and this issue is over, Russian values remain. He also wants him to recognize Russia's right to the lands it occupied since 2022 in the last war, meaning we are talking about approximately 20% of Ukraine's area. This is what he said, and when they told him, this is Ukraine's concession to halt the war. Journalists now inquire of Trump, will Ukraine make this concession? Those who live in 100 of their land in order to stop the war, what will Russia give up? He said Russia would give up completing the occupation of all of Ukraine. That's it. This is what the leader of the people said. This is what the man who enters into mediation said, or this fair ruling that he sees. Rather, Trump adds that in the expected settlement, Ukraine will not be given the right to join NATO, meaning it will remain weak in the future, the time in which we live. They see it all as partnerships, because the great powers can eat anyone in their way. Obligation of A, Ukraine did not join NATO, and it was already fighting Russia and Russia's enemy, so it became without a camp at this time. He is waiting for another opportunity in the future. Russia will come to complete the rest of Ukraine and presented very strange arguments. Trump, in order to convince journalists, is wrong in his claim that Crimea is Ukrainian land. So they say, by God, they have been there for a long time. The Russians have been in the land of Crimea, meaning that the people there are in Crimea. They speak Russian, and that Russian submarines are present next to Crimea. All of this is as if all of this gave Russia a right. Owning Crimea is not Ukrainian land. Crimea is our brothers and sisters. Ukrainian land with the recognition of the United Nations and with the recognition of Russia itself, when the United Nations retreats. In recent history, you will find this topic very clear. After the occupation of Crimea in 2014, the United Nations held a very, very large meeting, and the United Nations came out 68 to 62. On 27th of March 2014, condemning Russia's occupation of Crimea and stating that Ukraine's sovereignty over all its territory, including Crimea. This decision was approved by a majority. 141 countries said that Crimea is Ukrainian territory and Ukraine does not have full sovereignty over it, and condemned the Russian occupation of Ukrainian territory. Of these 140, 41 are American countries. I mean, Trump is now speaking the opposite of what America was speaking 11 years ago in 2014. By condemning this occupation and asserting that Crimea is Ukrainian land, there is a clear contradiction on the subject. On the day this development occurred, a total of 41 countries. They said they objected to Russia's occupation of Ukraine, but 5 countries approved Russia's occupation. For Crimea in Ukraine, of course, including Russia itself, then Belarus, Eritrea, North Korea, Syria, of course Syria, the Assad regime once meant, and 35 countries abstained from voting, including China, including India, and a forest of 11 countries abstained from voting. But there is a global consensus that Crimea is Ukrainian territory. We are talking about 141 countries in the United Nations. Russia itself in the Budapest Agreement of 1994, which is the agreement on Ukraine's separation from. For Russia, the agreement was that Ukraine would have full sovereignty over all its territory, including Crimea, in exchange for giving Ukraine all its stockpiles. The nuclear weapon to Russia returns it to Russia, where it was the Soviet Union's stockpile, meaning, and this is what Ukraine actually transferred all of its nuclear stockpiles, so it implemented what it had to do in the agreement, the Budapest Agreement. Therefore, Russia must adhere to this agreement, and this agreement in which it recognized that Crimea is Ukrainian land. Crimea, of course, a very, very attractive land for Russia. Crimea is not large. Approximately 27,000 kilometers or more, a simple need. But it's a very, very strategically important land. And it is more than one phase. First is location. Russia opens up to the Black Sea. Russia receives all the northern ports and freezes most of the year. It has no access to the shallow seas, the Black Sea and then the Mediterranean Sea, except for this region, and therefore it has a small port that exists when the belly passes, and after that the land of the Crimean Vineyard is vast on the Black Sea, opening up space for it to enter large quantities of trade and weapons. The military fleet on the Black Sea and the Dvir Seas. Also, the Crimea has the port of A.C. Vastpol, and this is a very huge and powerful port, and it has the largest Russian fleet, and the sign of Russian strength in fleets is found in this port, as it is very important for it. It has mineral and agricultural wealth in oil, etc. Coal contains natural gas, it contains copper, it contains iron, and it contains lead, which means that it contains a lot of wealth that is also available. For Russia, air control over the Black Sea. It represents a very vital area for Russia to set off to Ukraine later. I mean, a starting point is located in southern Ukraine. It is very easy for it to spread in Ukraine in a time of need. I mean, the logic is that Baden is a good and beautiful land, even if it belongs to Ukraine. Why don't we take it? The logic of strength and grandeur, the same logic that Trump talks about on the issue of Gaza. The land of Gaza is seen as a strategic location and a very, very vital location. How can it be with Palestinians? What do they do to the Zionist, American and Zionist entity? Of course, there is no Hajj or room here for me to say, by God, Ukraine is originally the land of the Soviet Union. It is as if Russia is saying that this is ours all over each other, not just the Kairma, because of course that is. This was an empire and it collapsed like any empire. It had countries. These countries collapsed over time and were liberated, like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Uzbekistan. Every day that was inside the Soviet Union was liberated by countries. I told him, that's it, we are done with this era. Otherwise, for example, the countries that were its occupiers, France has a right to it until now. And this is no one's words. No one ever says it, neither France, nor England, nor Spain, nor Portugal, nor the countries that were colonial one day. Unfortunately, the decisive factor in governance is our brothers and sisters. It is not the real documents, nor international laws, nor moral norms, nor even the international consensus in the world. The word is on 141 countries in the decision, but the decisive factor is, if this force were brutal and he came to the messenger, may God's prayers and peace be upon him, he warned that you would destroy previous nations. He said in the Prophet's hadith, which was narrated by Al-Bukhari Muslim on the authority of Aisha, may God's prayers and peace be upon him, he would have destroyed those before you, that if the noble among them, they would have abandoned him, and if the weak among them, they would have set limits on him, and if he stole from them, they would have set limits on him, and if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, may God's prayers and peace be upon him, he would have stolen, he would have cut off his hand. This is Islamic rule. I need to call Rashima, and now either the big encroaches on the small or the strong on the weak. They do not consider it something very normal. Take the generosity, take 20% of Ukraine, take what you take. They have no problem. If the weak encroaches on the big, oh, the diet will still come. Big, and they want to establish a limit on this weak person and achieve law, honor and morals, and everything will come to the weak. B is committing a crime. What is happening now is more than that. Worse, I mean, the modern ones now are worse than the ancients, because now even the weak do not make a mistake. The man Zelensky did not say anything except that the land is our land, and if I do not have the authority as the president of the republic, if I am giving up part of the land that is not its property, this does not belong to the Ukrainian people. He did not say anything wrong, and they will judge it until anyone. No, you are wrong, and you have done bad things, and you are prolonging the massacres, and this is the one who rules and says that glory be to God. This is a strange time for. This is what made Trump angry with Zelensky, that he does not want to acknowledge the loss of Crimea forever. He's right, he cannot liberate it now, but he cannot close the door on future generations. The equation may change. He cannot go on. This is salvation, not Ukrainian land. It is possible in the future, after the year 21-20, the Ukrainians will return to liberate Crimea from the Russians. The great powers of our time, our brothers, do not want to listen to the truth, never ever.